Hey guys, Alex here with Armadillo Armament. Today we are taking a look at the Holosun 507 comp model, one of the most exciting red dots in recent years, a favorite among competition shooters and civilians alike at a really good price point. Now, before we jump into the video, I have partnered with Red Pawn Shop. If you use code Armadillo, you will get 5% off your order. You will also be planting a tree and removing 1 pound of junk from the ocean for every single item in that order. And you're going to get a really cool armadillo patch with quad nods and MCXs and dual nods back there. Guys, I get a small kickback from that. You're not only getting a really cool patch, you're saving the planet. So, the Holosun 507 comp. I do have to give a disclaimer on this. If you have watched my Holosun HM3X review or my SCRS review, you'll know that Holosun generally provides me products. They provided me a couple products before, and I've reviewed them very favorably. This 507 comp was also provided to me from Holosun. So I do have a little bit of a relationship there. I don't speak with them very frequently, and I'm very honest in my reviews. If you guys have seen my Dan Wesson review, you know my Dan Weston review and my Alchemy custom weapon review, you know that I really went in and ripped those guns apart. So I like to think I'm a very unbiased individual, and I do not let relationships get in the way of me reviewing products. That being said, do understand that I got this for free, and if you think that taints my opinion, I completely understand. Take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Listen to what I'm saying, but verify, right? Look at other YouTubers, see what they're saying. That being said, I am very excited to show off this optic because this has been a product I have been working on for a while, or a product I've been reviewing for a while. Many products, I can really make a review in a couple hundred rounds, or I can make a review after just kind of like a week of use. And it's not because I'm trying to rush anything out, or a lot of YouTubers are trying to rush anything out. It's just when you really think about a product, some of them don't require a very long amount of time or a very high round count. Let's talk about red dots for a second in my reviewing process on this and why it took so long. Well, I know that Holosun dots are utterly reliable, okay? I have a EPS carry right here that is quite phenomenal. I have the 100 Concepts hex cap on there, which is a very interesting product. I'll be discussing at a later time. They've also provided that to me. And I previously had a 407 and then a 508T X2. So I know that Holosun products are going to survive. They're going to survive thousands and thousands of rounds and potentially many months. So I really, or many months or years, I don't really need to put tens of thousands of rounds. Now that's an excellent data point. However, where I think red dot reviewing comes into play is a lot of repetitions, knocking it around something like a gym bag, conceal carrying it and making sure that buttons aren't getting depressed, etc. We'll be getting into that. And then lastly, like battery life. So that is where my review takes a lot of time. Once again, this optic doesn't have a significant amount of rounds on it. I'm looking at probably about 2,000 rounds, many of which being 45 ACP and very spicy 45 ACP, albeit. However, a lot of the time I've had on this optic has been me really analyzing the battery and then checking out those other features I mentioned a moment ago. So, like I said, this took me a little while, but hey, you don't need to be first, you just need to be the best. And this optic has definitely been making its way through the competition scene and the conceal carry scene. And because of that, I really wanted to take my time and I really wanted to give you guys an excellent review. So without further ado, let's jump into the review. So the first thing we need to talk about on the 507 Comp Ronin edition is going to be the specifications. You can find them online. I have them right behind me, so we're not going to dwell on this too much. But this is a RMR footprint optic, which is probably the most important aspect of the optic, or one that you need to know immediately. And the reason why that's important is the RMR footprint has realistically won the optic wars, right? RMR is everywhere. The shield footprint is great. The acro footprint, like this, is great. It has a really cool clamshell design, but overall it's a lot more rare. And I like my guns to be maybe not chambered in that footprint, but I like them to have that footprint because it kind of future-proofs it, right? The recent RCR and the Trijicon RMR HD utilize the RMR footprint. They obviously made the RMR, so that goes without saying, but they didn't want to deviate from it. I think most companies aren't going to deviate from it. I would not, or I'd be very surprised if the acro footprint continues to, let's say, be like a standard into the future. So the RMR footprint is everywhere, and if you have a MOS Glock or many other modular optic system pistols, this is very likely going to fit right on top of it, if not, buying an adapter plate and making it work. Other than that, this is made out of T6 aluminum, a pretty good standard amongst pistol red dots. It is very reliable from what I've seen so far. We'll be getting into that. And it is running a 1632 battery, which we will also be speaking about, but that is going to provide you up to 50,000 hours of battery life on setting 6. Now, is setting 6 good enough for you? Well, that's kind of up to you to decide. I keep my red dots pretty bright, so I kind of anticipate less than, that's going to be a 5-year battery. I anticipate less than 5 years. However, this dot does have shake awake. And shake awake is something that we in the industry have kind of taken for granted, I want to say, but a lot of people really prefer it in their red dots, myself included. I have other red dots like this Acro right here that is purely a manual optic. There is no shake awake. So if I forget and leave this off, or leave it on, it is going to drain the battery by the next time I get to it. Acros have very large battery lives, aim points roughly up to 50,000 hours, same thing as the Holosun, but we'll be getting to battery life and cons in a little bit. Once again, there's a reason this test took so long. Now, other than that, this does have 12 brightness settings, 10 of which being roughly daylight and 2 of which being night vision, which may or may not be relevant to you. If you are a cool guy and you've got night vision behind you, really recommend you guys buy night vision. It's so freaking cool. I just recently showed the girlfriend it, and they're always amazed by it, guys. Trust me, you'll find women if you get night vision. But other than that, this does have a kind of like a modular optics system. So this does have a center red dot, which I'll be putting pictures on the screens right now, but it does have a normal red dot, which is my preferred way of shooting a red dot on a pistol. We'll get into rifle in a little bit, but it also does have a circle reticle, and this is different than the 507 comp. The regular 507 comp does have a couple deviations. This is the Ronin edition with a cringe little dragon on the side, but it does have a circle reticle without a dot in the middle. Now, depending on who you are, maybe that's useful for you on a shotgun, right? Because shotguns obviously have a little bit of spread at distance. However, I have been viewing a lot of forums, Reddit posts, whatever have you, and some competition shooters actually prefer to have just a circle, even if they're shooting a pistol. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, that's really weird. Why would I want a circle to kind of go around the target instead of on the target? And I think the rationale is that they prefer to have a clear sight picture on the target without a dot obstructing it whatsoever. Now, I don't shoot like that. Once again, I vastly prefer the single dot in the center. That being said, I can understand their perspective on it. Now, it does have a 32 MOA ring with a circle dot, very similar to something like a EOTech. And you guys know right over there. You guys know how much I love my EOTechs. And that could be very beneficial for new shooters. Generally speaking, I think shooting with a single dot is going to be the best shooting experience. If you are proficient with a red dot, I think the single dot can be maybe not the fastest, but I'll get into that, but it's going to be the most accurate, and it's going to occlude the least amount of your target. Not only is this an opinion that I have, but if you look at the likes of Sage Dynamics, he very much agrees to this. He likes very, very, very small dots, and I'm on the same page as him. I don't believe that my red dot should be 16 MOA or 8 MOA. I understand competition shooters that do, and Holosun has you covered. They do have red dots that are in that MOA, and also you can get it in the color green if you want your optic to be the wrong color. I vastly prefer red, and I recommend red. However, once again, it does give you the option. So if you are new to red dots, you may want to put on that circle dot pattern, because when you bring the dot up, especially if my brightness isn't very high, I can kind of lose the dot. Now, I shoot with dots a lot. I don't lose the dot whatsoever. But for many people that do struggle with that, they bring it up and they say, oh, where's the dot? It's, maybe it's too low or it's out of my vision, and the shooting experience is ruined, right? You ruined your drill, or you ruined your course if you're doing USPSA, IDPA, whatever have you. So if we swap it to the other reticle by holding the minus button right here, we can get to their circle dot reticle, and then when I bring it up to my eye, it is massive. It takes up a lot of the window. And because of that, as a new shooter, it may be incredibly beneficial to you if you are still getting acclimated to red dots, whereas a small red dot, just is gonna take a little bit of time to get used to. So now that we've talked about some of the settings, let's talk about the shooting experience of the Dot and really why you're here, why it's so popular. Well, Holosun came out with the 507 comp, at least in my opinion, as a response to the Trijicon SRO. The Trijicon SRO is a fragile optic. The RMR is the gold standard. The RMR Type 2, that is the gold standard in reliability. But people wanted a larger, less tinted window. Now, I have a review of the Trijicon SRO, and I love it. It is my favorite shooting red dot, and that sentiment actually still stands, but keep watching the video. Holosun came out with this because they saw there was kind of like a gap in the market. The Trijicon SRO is very fragile and very expensive. It also overhangs the dot mount a little bit, which can cause an issue for someone with forward irons like this, or even a staccato where the optic is then going to push over the ejection port. Not a huge deal, but staccato doesn't technically recommend it, or it can cause some issues. So once again, Holosun saw that gap in the market and they said, we want to be there. And one thing that's really cool about Holosun is that a want from a customer base, or a stagnation in dot optic or technology really breeds innovation. And Holosun is kind of the epitome of that. Now, I've had problems with Holosun products in the past, but one problem I've never had is saying that they don't innovate. Trijicon doesn't innovate. And I love Trijicon. I love the ACOG. I love the VCOG. I love their dots. I love Aimpoint. Aimpoint makes the same pistol and rifle optic for the past 30 years, but they don't really innovate. Holosun is out here making the Iris, which is a VSAW laser, the 507 comp, which is a competition optic with multiple reticle systems. They're doing a lot of really cool things, and that is where the 507 comp kind of sits. But like I said, let's talk about the shooting experience now, because I mentioned earlier that the SRO is my favorite shooting optic, and that does kind of maintain here. The SRO is a circular window. Once again, I recommend you watch my video on the optic to get my full opinions on it, but this is a square window. Now, this window is significantly larger than the likes of a RMR or a EPS carry or a 508T or an Acro, and I'm trying to give you a good sight picture right now. You can see the dot in there. This is a fantastic sight window, and because of that, it makes it so even when I am shooting large 45 ACP, 230 grain slugs, for the most part, my dot really doesn't leave the window. With 45 ACP, you know, it may. I'm using some pretty hefty loads, but on something like my Roland Special, which has previously lived on my MR920 Roland Special, oh, it doesn't leave the window whatsoever. This Acro doesn't leave the window, so trust me, on the 507 comp, it doesn't leave the window at all. And it is a glorious shooting experience. Now, you want a larger window in, let's say, competition shooting for a couple of reasons. First of all, on your presentation, the number one hiccup people have when they're shooting red dots is they bring the gun up and they say, I don't see the dot. And then they get frustrated because they're doing this, right? And comment down below if you do that. I know you do, because we've all done it, right? I've been there. But they bring the dot up and they don't see it, and then they do poorly on the stage. The other reason competition shooters want it is, once again, so the dot can stay in the window during the recoil process. Now, the benefit of that is, if the dot stays within the window, then you don't need to guess where that dot is coming down from. A lot of really good shooters, like Stage Dynamics, once again, as an example, say that it's not the recoil that matters, it's instead the return. So realistically, if your gun is doing this all the way up and then down, as long as you're returning in a very repeatable position, that's technically okay, right? That's fine, as long as you are able to repeat over and over. Now, if recoil didn't exist and it did this over and over, that's obviously better, because our eyes and our mind-muscle connection are then going to be able to put the dot over the target a little bit easier with a little bit less, effort. And effort is really what matters when it comes to shooting. You want to put in as little effort as possible. If your gun can do that for you, if your dot can do that for you, you want to take advantage of it. So now that we've talked about the benefits of a larger dot, once again, the 507 comp definitely fits the bill. That being said, the SRO having a circular window is still my preferred shooting experience from a explicit shooting experience perspective. But now we need to talk about durability, because there is a reason that Holosun went with this square design, at least in my opinion. Well, really all Holosun dots are squares or rectangles, so they're closed emitters. That being said, the square design does have tangible benefits. Like I said, the SRO is incredibly fragile. If you throw this off a building, it's going to break. But if you drop it from shoulder height, there's a very good chance it's going to be completely fine. I have dropped this many times. Like I said, in my review process, I do things that a lot of other reviewers don't. They just take the dot and they put it on a gun for 1,000 rounds over the course of a couple hours. And that's a great test, right? Having a little burn down, it can be useful information. But you know what's much better information? Putting this in your pants for a couple months and then also putting it in a gym bag a couple times a week. And then seeing if anything's going to happen, because I'm dropping this on the floor. I'm dropping this on concrete. You know, there's a little bit of cushion of the bag there, but if it's a fragile dot like an SRO, it's going to break. I've never done that with an SRO, and quite frankly, I'm too afraid to. I would do it with a acro or a EPS carry, but I definitely wouldn't do it with an SRO. So the 507 comp, in my opinion, the niche of the comp is that it kind of blends the durability of their more durable optics with their competition optics. The SRO is still my favorite shooting experience dot. Not by much. We're talking, you know, a hair, a percentage or two, and I probably get the exact same times, but there's just something about the circle that drives my eyes in. That being said, this is very, very, very close behind while also offering a pretty good EDC and competition dot experience, and it's not going to break anywhere near as quickly as an SRO. I've never broken an SRO outside of buttons, glue getting detached, but I've never broken one, so you know, I can't really say for certain. That being said, from what I've seen online, this is definitely a more durable optic, and because of that, if you are looking for a good EDC optic that does offer a larger window, or a range gun that offers a larger window, but it's also A, cheaper, and B, likely a little bit more durable, the 507 comp is definitely your girl. Now, one other thing that I brought up in the beginning of this video was, once again, my review process, and another reason this took so long was to gauge the battery. Now, the EPS carry, one of my favorite dots that I recommend for anyone with a micro compact gun, or even a Glock 19. This isn't going to hang over the edge, and it's going to look great. A lot of 1911 addicts or 1911 users like to use the EPS because it's pretty thin. But you will see a consistent complaint online about Holosun's kind of their battery connects. And what I mean by that is inside of this acro, the metal on metal that connects the battery to the circuitry of the optic is incredibly, incredibly important and incredibly excellent on the RMR Type 2 and the acro and a couple other very high premium optics. Whereas Holosun, this isn't a knock against them, but you can see people online that say, hey, I'm having really bad battery drain issues, or hey, I'm having to replace the battery in my EPS carry within, a month or two, and I carry it every day, so it's really annoying. So once again, does it make more sense for me to put 10,000 rounds down range, or does it make more sense for me to constantly use the shake awake over the course of 6 months? I've had this optic for give or take 6 months, actually more than 6 months at this point, and I am either touching it every single day or carrying it every single day or putting it in my gym bag every single day. And I have had absolutely zero battery issues whatsoever. I've never replaced this battery. Now, with the EPS carry, when I got this and I was reviewing it from Holosun, I actually called their representative. I forget who I spoke with, but he was a very nice gentleman. And I said, hey, are you guys aware of any battery issues? And they said, not really. I see like some posts online every once in a while, but I don't really know of any battery issues. And I said, okay, well, I definitely see it a little bit. So do you have anything to say there? And he said, the only thing I can think of is that they're using the factory battery. And those factory batteries may be sitting around for, 6 months or a year, maybe even more. And because of that, they may be getting a battery that's just not, fully up to the task. So if you are getting a EPS carry or a 507 comp, they recommend, and I recommend, that you just put a new battery in. Now, I didn't end up doing that. This is the stock battery because I'm poor, and I'm not poor, but I don't want to change batteries if I don't have to. This isn't like my primary EDC gun that I'm constantly changing batteries on and being very diligent with. Kind of is, actually. I should be a little bit more diligent. But regardless, you should probably change the batteries. If you have concern about the battery life on their 507 comp model or whatever have you, Just change the battery, because people do theorize that, or Holosun theorizes that that is the problem. Now, Holosun does have a pretty aggressive shake awake. If I put this down within a couple of minutes, I think 5 minutes, it is going to turn off. And because of that, it is going to preserve your battery until the next time you pick it up, and it does have a very good shake awake. So even the littlest bit of movement, you know, bringing it that foot up, is going to wake it up. Now, because of that, for something like this acro is a excellent bump in the night gun, and I don't really care too much about shake awake, but the benefit of shake awake and me just needing to grab my gun and it immediately be in a good condition of fire is very cool. I leave my EPS carry loaded 24/7 in this really cool Red Tiger holster. So what I can do is in the middle of the night, once again, grab it. I know the dot is always on, present, pull the trigger. Hopefully that never happens. But I just wanted to speak towards that battery issue, because that is something that I have been putting a lot of time and diligence and looking into. That is the only real complaint I have about the 507 comp, and I found that it isn't really a substantial complaint. So where does that bring us with the 507 comp? If you were looking for a dot for competition use, I recommend the 507. Its huge window size makes it a pretty good advantage over the likes of a RMR or an acro. You should be good enough to not need a large window. That being said, a large window definitely feels good. It gives you those warm and fuzzies, and it makes you a better shooter. In fact, I think a larger window on a pistol dot, generally speaking, is better than like porting. I know that sounds crazy, but I find that if you take a, let's say like a Glock 19, and you port it and give me an RMR, I'm gonna shoot good, right? I'm a fairly good shooter. But if you take that same Glock and you don't port it and give me a larger window, I actually find that I would take the larger window one, because it does have those tangible advantages. If you're a competition shooter and you're looking for a dot, get a 507 comp. If you want to change it up from an SRO, or go get an SRO, they're both fantastic dots. If you are a EDC person and you want a red dot, the 507 comp also fits the bill very well. This is a holster that it has been living in. This is a QBO tactical secondary. I actually just got it recently, but the dot doesn't interfere whatsoever. By the way, look at that wrapped Cordura Tiger stripe. Oof, they did a good job. I'm very excited to show this to you guys. But the optic doesn't cause any problems, and printing is a non-issue. The width of the optic is marginally more than the 1911, if larger at all, because you're probably putting an X300 on it and something like a thumb ledge if you want to. So if you're looking for an EDC dot, get it. If you're looking for a cheap dot, get it. These can be had between $300 and $400, and that is an absolute steal. Hopefully with the tariffs coming in, that is not going to make Holosun products exorbitantly expensive. But if they do, and you have Holosun, then you're gonna be really cool, because they're gonna be more expensive than like Trijicon dots. So I don't know, make do with that what you will. But I've been thoroughly impressed by the 507 comp. Once again, this optic has been provided to me. I recommend you watch other channels. There are some excellent channels out here that have reviewed this. Regular Guy Training, Regular Guy Firearms is a phenomenal channel that absolutely loves this dot. Sage Dynamics, there are so many. Just put in 507 comp on YouTube and do your research. Go look into competition shooters, and you will see that many of them that are running Atlases and Staccatos are running the 507 comp, and they've transitioned away from the SRO. And then many concealed carry users are reporting excellent just time and use with the 507 comp. Therefore, my opinion is that it's fantastic. Holosun, thank you guys for providing this dot for review. I will continue to shoot this dot over the next couple of years. It's likely going to be living on this gun. However, I do have another gun, USP compact baby, that might be pretty cool with a 507 comp. But it is something that I'm going to be continuing evaluating, because I'm only one voice out of about 1,000-ish rounds in 6 months. I want to, get more rounds on this and get a couple years on it and continue to keep you guys updated. So I will be doing so. Guys, if you have any questions, please comment down below and I'd gladly answer them. Thank you for tuning into my channel. This is Alex with Armadillo Armament, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.